Ntombizanele Mtsizela and her three daughters, aged 3, 8 and 14, have been laid to rest earlier today. The 35-year-old mother of 4 is suspected of having poisoned her children and herself to death. Her 11-year-old daughter managed to escape. Newzroom Afrika's Siphosethu Booi is following that story and joins us live. Siphosethu, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. What happened today at the funeral?
Well, good afternoon to you, Gwen, and to the rest of our viewers. What a sad morning and afternoon today has been, not only to the rest of the country, but to the family and the villagers of Jabavu village here in Port St. John's. This morning, we saw the family, but most importantly, the 11-year-old girl who managed to escape death, one would put it, because it was in that moment when her mother as well as her siblings' remains were ushered inside the homestead, where she lost herself and literally gave an emotional call and cry to her mother and the rest of the villagers as well as family members. Then all could not contain their sadness. Throughout the day, we've heard from civil organizations, society members calling for social workers to partner up and also with community members in supporting young mothers who find themselves in situations where the burden of having to take care of the children gets too much. Also advising them to speak to people in the family, not family members, neighbors, or even make appointments to the social worker officers, and to just go and vent and also to ask for assistance. And also civil organization unions also calling for, for skills development in rural areas for young women and other ways and means of making sure that they're able to look after their families and to cater for their needs. But it was, of course, Bulelwa Mkananda, who's the neighbor who received the 11-year-old girl the day she returned on Monday morning from escaping death with her mother as well as her siblings. This is what she had to say to us, Gwen.
All right, we will get back to that bite. But Siphosethu, I just wanted to, looking at this and considering that this is not the first case of its kind, not so long ago we had something similar. What is the community's reaction to this? Because it looks like it's becoming a little bit more common.
And what's so sad, Gwena, is that the incident that happened last month happened in Butterworth. It's 3 hours away from this particular area where we are now in Jabavu. And of course, speaking to some of the mothers as well, Bulelwa Mkananda in specific, the one who received the 11-year-old girl, saying to me that it leaves her with a very sour taste in her mind and in her mouth, simply because the child, the 11-year-old as well as her 8-year-old sister, had went or visited the home where she lives, Mkananda, and she says that they asked for my contact details, saying that their mother was looking for my contact details, and I waited for her call. And she details the fact that upon her return from a nearby village to go look for work, and she came back to the village again, started selling and starting a business where she was buying goods and also selling those goods. She then noticed that she was not as social as she used to be prior her leaving to go and look for a job in the nearby village. So she says that she wished she didn't have to wait, or she hadn't waited for her to call her, but actually went to her and asked her how she was doing, because she did notice a change in her behavior. And, when I just walking around this morning amongst the community members, male and female, you could see people just weeping, even men in the community, saying that young women need to come forward and find solace in some community members, and to say that they're struggling to also voice out when they should need help, and for community members to be more gentle towards women who are raising their children. So that particular topic of support, as well as making sure that skill development is being sent out, and those kind of information of young mothers being, encouraged to also look into avenues of legal adoption and speaking to social workers with regards to those matters, is one that the Eastern Cape Department Social Development as well needs to take a look at, and also considering the mental health of young mothers in this particular province of the Eastern Cape, Gwena.
Just before we go back to that bite you mentioned earlier on, Siphosethu, just wanted to check, but what are community leaders saying in that this realization that there is a problem, and particularly as you mentioned, a problem of support to these mothers? Are there those avenues that are available that community leaders are making available for people to go to when they are encountering such problems?
And those were the calls, Gwena, that government as well as community members shouldn't only visit homes and do door-to-doors just to tell people that a house has been burnt down in this area, but issues surrounding mental health are one that the Eastern Cape Department needs to do more awareness programs, to try and educate the people in the rural areas, young and old, to really motivate the issue of speaking up and speaking out when one faces such challenges. So it's quite sad to say that this particular incident for this community of Tabavu village has been an eye-opening moment for them, and also a call to many young people and old to really become more kind and also be more supportive to the young people in their communities, and also to avail themselves to these young mothers who seem to be raising these children alone in this particular province of the Eastern Cape, Gwena, because there's really a high number of young mothers who are now finding themselves in situations where they have to commit suicide because they don't see a way out to their situations that they're faced with.
Well, as we've mentioned earlier on, let's take a listen, or rather take a look at this reaction.
Xa befika ehlathini ufike wohlisa lo ubembelekile umntana wamondlalela ingubo lubembeleke ngayo wabahlalisa phathi hlala napha nonke bantwana bami thi ayike bahlala nyani wakhupha le plastic kule plastic kukhona ibhotile yezikhaselite eyi2 ngephezulu basele eziyi4 wakhuphe eyi1 wakhupha la pilisi ibina2 wayifaka kobutywala wabese khupha ikomityi kusho ukuthi bekhona ikomityi kule plastic wabese bagalelela ethi mabasele waqala ngomncinci ona 8 wamthelela wasela umntana weza kulo una 11 usindileyo wasela wamgalelela wasela weza kulo una 14 wathi luna 14 hayi mama ngeke ndiyisele lento ugqiba kuyigalela ipilisi yetanki inuka ngeke ndiyiphuze wathi noba uyiselanga abantwana mama okusalayo ndizokukhama ngeqhiya kungabikho mntu zokhala ke apha uthi the sathetha nalwamdala wakhala lubeqale ngaye angu-inka wahamba umama wafika wamkhama emqaleni wamkhama umntana uthi wathula mama walala u-inka waphuma umama ekumkhameni u-inka weza kuye lungu athini wafika wamkhama naye uthi uthe samkhama kanti uyaphaphama u-inka futhi uyavuka futhi uyakhala uthi waya kuye u-inka wavele wakhupha iqhiya wafika wamqinisha ngalo emqaleni uthi ndabona uba yo mandivele ndizifise ukuze umama angezi neliqhiya.
And that was Bulelwa Mkhananda, who's the neighbor of the Mtsizela family, and she's the woman that received the 11-year-old young girl upon her escape on Monday morning, Gwena, just detailing just the type of support that this young girl will actually need moving forward.
Absolutely shocking. Siphosethu, Booi, thank you very much for joining us, and really shows the conditions of what South Africans, ordinary South Africans, are living in.